All right, for this video, just like we talked about in class, we're going to talk about complex compound forms. Okay, we went over all this in class, and we're going to talk about, I'm going to show you two of these profiles. But remember, when we're drawing, I'm showing you two profiles here, but it's actually 1, 2, 3 profiles when we actually draw it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this profile 1, and then I'm also going to do, we'll say, something that's a little bit more tricky, profile 7 probably, okay? So with these profiles, we're talking about lofted forms, okay? And a loft we talked about in the curved geometry in perspective, we talked about having just a surface made from one sketch or one curve to another. No matter what that curve is doing, we're just going to have that. But this time we're adding a third curve behind that. So if we look at this, we have profile 1 has two sketches like this, okay? You can see by this bottom common baseline that this is a closed sketch. If I didn't have it as a closed sketch, it would be like this, but that's not correct, okay? Just like the last time, we're actually going to see this as so we're going to have two of these, okay? And in truth, the organization would be this in the middle, this up top, and this in the front, okay? So I'm going to see it like this. How to draw this? To start, we could start, as always, with our perspective cubes. Ooh, that's bad, that's bad, that's bad. Okay. All right. So in our perspective cube, what we could do is we could actually break this into, where we'll look at this as this is a surface and this is a surface. If I'm looking at these profiles and I have a big and two small surfaces, what I could potentially do is just say, you know what, I'm going to break this surface into this height. And what I did was I just drew this line, and then I drew an imaginary line in perspective to roughly where it would go on the back. And then those two lines go back to the vanishing point. Then I'm going to draw, oh boy, two vertical lines, maybe. Two vertical lines, and then I can do the same back here, okay? These vertical lines are going to be really close to the edge, okay? So I have these two smaller sketches that I can put a curve into. Okay, so I've got my two curves, but what do I do in the middle? Well, in the middle, I want to find roughly the center of this square or this rectangle. Good golly, I'm bad today. All right. And I can draw my vertical lines. Okay. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw this in the center. And then now that I have my three curves in perspective, it's a matter of connecting the dots. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out from here and I'm going to come over. And what I'm really doing is I'm looking at what are the parts of these sketches that I'm going to see. I clearly see it coming tangent here. It's coming just kind of over the edge there, and then it's really going to hit somewhere in the middle here, okay? Then I'm going to close this up, and technically I will have a thin line, and we have to draw through our objects. I have a thin line there, and then I'm going to come, oh boy, and then I'm going to come here and draw a darker line. Okay, and so this is busy because I'm using a marker, but if I come back, you can see that I now have pulled this out. One thing that I want you to be aware of is this front is the only thing that's fully drawn. This middle curve in here, this middle whole curve, that's to show our object. It's not to be drawn on, it's to show our object. And the one in the back as well. The one in the back is also supposed to just show the form. Okay, so what does this mean if I'm going to draw it without the use of a cube? And you're welcome to use a cube if you do use something really light. But what I would do is I'll take 3 lines in perspective. Okay, so I've got these 3 lines in perspective, and then I'm going to draw a center joining line right there. And then I'm just going to draw 3 profiles. And when I draw them, I'm going to imagine that I'm drawing them in a plane. Then I'm going to come around and I'm going to close this off. And then I'm going to draw my bottom lines. And then I'm going to come back and draw my top lines. Okay, and if I were to darken that up again, I would draw this whole shape. See, it's coming tangent and then tangent back with this curve. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to darken this up with that line right there. Okay, so this is profile 1. So what I would have is Adam, Feld, profile 1, one through 5. Now, that's one. That's one of the more basic ones. There's a more difficult one in profile 7. 5, 6, 7, and 8 are a little bit more difficult. These are also quite difficult, but I'm going to let you guys play around with that. This one I find is something that everybody thinks is easy, but is less easy than everybody assumes that it is. So I'm going to get a new sheet of paper, and then I'm going to do the same thing. This one, I'm going to draw my 3 lines in perspective, and then I'm going to draw my center line, bisecting all 3 of those. And then for this one really makes a difference to have these vertical lines in here, because then that really helps determine the height of that middle section. And if I say that my middle section is going to be there and there, then if I go back in perspective, it'll be right about there. Okay. And so what I'm doing is I'm not drawing these lines, but I'm tick marking where I want them to be. You can see there, there, and there. This is kind of like a cloud. And so what I'll do is I will draw it, comes up, okay? I'm going to do the same back here. And if I start with this, I can come back and I can start to tick mark where the ends meet. So here's where it started. Here's where I would put my tick mark, okay? And so then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to okay. And then now for this one, I want this to be this tall. So I'm going to make it much wider. And I'm going to draw that right there. Now this one has a little bit of an issue because I've got a lot of different things that I can see, okay? I would come back and darken up the front. And then I'm going to come and meet my corners again. Okay. Do the same over here, but I'm going to wait on that. But see, what I want to do is I want to go on the outside. This outside, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go like this because that is where I'm going to see. I could come all the way to the edge, but I'm actually going to be cutting through this and I'm not going to see that corner. But I'm actually going to come back and I'm going to see this from here to here, but I'm also going to have this right here will block. So and what we're doing is we're just observing where these forms are going to actually fit. So for this form is going to block a lot of this stuff. So for this, what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to come back. Oops, I missed it a little bit. I'm going to come back over the top of this because I'm not going to see that in the front. Now let me darken this up so it's a little bit more easily understood. Come to the front. And that's my form. This is profile 7, and we're going to do one more. We'll do a demo of this in class, but that's how I would do it.